Okay. All right, hello everybody. Did you enjoy the electric vehicles?
Yes.
All right, did everybody get a chance to find one that works for you? Yeah. How many people here have an electric vehicle, a plug-in vehicle? Okay. How many people here have a hybrid vehicle with an electric engine? And of the people who have hybrids, is anyone planning to go electric? Okay, all right. Looks like we have about half of the hybrid users. There's a progression here sometimes. Some people skip right from the internal combustion engine, go right to the EV. Some people take it in steps. Yep. All right, anyone else driving anything unusual? A fuel cell car, any of those? Or converted, any converted cars converted to become electric? No? I'm driving a 2007 Prius converted to be electric. It has the last battery pack available from Calb. It's the last vehicle that we converted. I converted a 2001, I converted a 2004 Prius to be electric. That's the old days. That's when you couldn't get electric vehicles like what you're seeing now, the full production, the beautiful, fast, quiet electric vehicles that are out there today. Lots of choices to choose from. All right, so we titled this presentation, Have Want. When you want something, you'll find a way to get what you want. If you don't want something, if it's not appealing to you, then it's kind of like twisting your arm. If it's maybe there's a bunch of reasons that come together and you're thinking about making a change in your life, then those reasons together collectively might do it. All right, so what we have here is the energy ecosystem. And what that means is electric appliances of all types, anything that's a load, a vehicle, TV, stereo, anything that's using power, that can be powered by the utility grid, that can be powered by your home. You can have solar power from your home, or you could have wind power, a mix of wind power purchased through the utility using renewable energy credits. Or you could maybe some people here might even have wind power at their homes, but traditionally in San Diego, about 30% of people in some areas are solar powered, and that power usually goes from the roof or the ground mount solar to the home appliances. But we see it as a continuum, that the power can flow in a circle. So the initial products that we've seen, the solar power, are now being complemented by battery packs. That's what we have on the side of the home. So the power can be a continuous loop. You can put solar power or utility grid power into a battery, and then you can consume it. And also we have electric vehicles as one of our most costly energy costs for home. And you can have the power sent from the solar or from the utility grid to your electric vehicle. You can drive on fuel you produce. Very soon we will have the ability to have the batteries in our vehicles provide power to the home. So I've done this as an experiment with my plug-in Prius vehicles, and we have blackout power protection at our home. We're able to do that for demonstration purposes. And you've probably heard some stories. People have done this sort of thing during Hurricane Sandy or other emergency situations when there's an extended blackout. You don't have to go through all that trouble and have a high voltage DC battery connected to your home. That's for experiments. But in the future, the major automotive companies will bring forward something like leaf to home. And probably many people have heard about the leaf to home system in Japan when there was the nuclear power crisis. People were powering their homes, and then the government now, I guess, is incentivizing adoption of those. So the power can flow both ways, like it's here in the Mobius strip. All right, so today we're going to focus on economics. I'm not going to take you through a lot of bullet points, but we're going to have a lot of pictures of electric vehicles, past, present, and future. These are the major reasons people get electric vehicles. We're somewhat familiar on the economics, but we're going to dive deep, and I'm going to show you, depending upon your situation, it might be possible to have a vehicle much more affordable than you think, with rebates and incentives that aren't readily available through internet searches if you don't know where you're going on that. All right, energy independence. That's the ability, well, like I said, during a blackout to direct that power where you need it to go. Lifestyle. Some people are buying electric cars just for lifestyle. We're going to cover a few of those today. And status. Like I said, with solar, some areas 30% solar powered. People are seeing it up on the roof. And it becomes kind of a, my neighbor has it, so I'm interested in it. It's that way with electric vehicles. When you get one, you want to join a group, come to an event, show it off, and get other people interested in it and talking about it. You'll make great friends. I've met many people here in the room that I'm very happy to be connected with. These are my peeps. So if there's anyone that I haven't met here before, please feel free to meet me after the event. My business cards are on the end of the table over there by the event flyer, and I have a few in my pocket too. I'm a company owner. My company does solar power, electric vehicle, and battery integration for homes. And we do the energy analysis, as Phil was talking about, and the cash flow analysis as well. So I can handle just about any question. All right, so of course the environment. What are we doing about the environment? We're starting to hear in the North County Climate Change Alliance, we're hearing a drumbeat that we need to make radical changes soon. We're hearing that at San Diego 350.org meetings. We're hearing that at the SANDAG meetings, the 5 big moves. That's what's going on right now. Everyone here is interested in transportation. I encourage you Friday at 9 a.m. to go to the SANDAG meeting and tell the officials what you want. Look online at SANDAG's 5 big moves. How many people have seen the presentation? Okay. You need to take a look at it. Our entire transportation system is going to go through a radical change. We've learned from Houston that if you build a 24-lane freeway, it'll have gridlock within just a few weeks. We can't just widen our freeways and expect the traffic jams to stop. And we certainly can't expect the pollution and the health and safety concerns to be mitigated continuing on with fossil fuels the way that we do. All right, so at some of these groups meetings, if you're hearing about the 10-year commitment, we have 10 years to do something substantial about climate change. And I'm going to show you some ways today that we can do that address environment, health, and safety. And we lost our mouse. There we go. Okay, so on the economic side, how many people are familiar with the electric vehicle time of use rates? Okay, we've got about 20% here. We have the old rates, the tier rate system. Everybody's familiar with that. If you use more power, then you pay more, and it's incremental. The lowest tier is pretty inexpensive. It's expensive by the national standards. We have the highest utility rate cost in the nation now that we've changed to time of use. The tier 2, most people find themselves in tier 2 if your home is very efficient, if you've changed your light bulbs from incandescent to LEDs, if you've changed your old refrigerator and modified your behavior in some ways, you can stay in tier 1. But most people are in tier 2, and many of them are in tier 3. Hot tubs, big houses in inland areas with air conditioning or many occupants. People need to think about things a little bit differently now. We've switched, for about half of San Diego territory, we've switched from the tier rates to the time of use rates. How many people are on the time of use rates? We only had 20% that know about it. And so most of the people that know about it then are on the time of use. So shout out, did your bill go up? Yes. Your bill went up. Did anyone's bill go down? We had two people's bills went, 3, 4 went down. So this is really important. The way that you use power is now a bigger cost factor in your utility bill than how much power you use. In the old days, if you had a hot tub and had an electric vehicle, you might get the super user charge and pay 55 cents per kilowatt hour. But now it's a little bit different. If you get an electric vehicle, look down here at the bottom. The time of use rate for super off-peak is 9 cents per kilowatt hour, and I think that's probably one of the lowest rates for electricity in the nation. If you can offload, if you can change your behavior and change any of those loads to be running after midnight and before 6 p.m. on weekdays. This is what SDG&E's campaign is doing right now. Has everyone seen the watch that talks that's telling you to shift your behavior and avoid the peak rate? Have you seen these ads? Okay. So yeah, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. weekdays is what they want you to avoid. That's when we have the peak power usage. And if you're able to modify your behavior, you can save a lot of money, and I'll show you how much. So schedule TOU, time of use DR1. That's the domestic rate. That's the regular rate. If you have a low income rate or a care qualified or a medical rate, that's not what we're looking at here. But if you are on the tier rates, 10% of the territory every month, SDG&E is transferring from the tier rates to the time of use, so that by February, everyone in the territory is on time of use rates. And if you didn't make a switch to an energy upgrade discount utility rate, then you'll find yourself in the TOU DR1, or otherwise, sometimes the utility offers an incentive to get people in early, and they might offer you a different rate program that's slightly different. But look at the peak rate time for the domestic rate 1. Summer is 61 cents per kilowatt hour. So I want to give you a metric that you can understand here. 61 cents per kilowatt hour. We're six times as much. Let's go to the next screen and see if we can get to that. Driving electric. Okay, so these are your choices here. Solar power. If you take the cost of the system after incentives and divide by the warranted power supply, power production over a 25-year period, you end up with, for a cash purchase, 6 cents to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. If you're driving 12,000 miles per year, that's about $200 per year to drive on solar power. If you're on the electric vehicle time of use rate 5 at 9.3 cents per kilowatt hour, a little bit more, about $500 per year. There's also an electric vehicle 2 rate that gives you a whole house discount. It's better than the standard rate, but you're really missing out. You're paying more for your driving. So if you can charge at night, then you would want the electric vehicle time of use rate 5. Now there's some exceptions here. It's a really strange billing system that they have. March and April, the super off-peak times are different. That goes from midnight till 2 p.m. And on weekends and holidays, you can charge in that super off-peak from midnight till 2 p.m. So let's all get a tattoo on our eye. It's hard to remember these things. When I come home, I just know I'm not plugging in my car until after 9 p.m. I don't have an automatic switch on my modified car. But some people here have electric vehicles that will do that for you in the app, in the software. You just plug it in, or in the electric vehicle charger. You can have that done, and then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry. If you make a mistake, you might have a big electric bill for a month. But if you're not checking your bills every month, sometimes people call me and they tell me these horror stories that they've been driving very long distances in electric vehicles, or they've been running their pool pump because the algae was going on, and their bills have skyrocketed. So watch out for this. It doesn't mean that your bill is going to go up. Some people, as we saw in the room, have bills that go down. What you need is an energy efficiency expert that has software that can adequately measure the time of use that you use your power over the year and add up and then show you side-by-side comparisons. You can do this on your own at sdgne.com in their software. However, some of the ways that SDG&E represents their data might not meet the accuracy, or might meet their marketing program. So sometimes the flyers that you see, and especially if they're handout printed flyers, they can be out of date. Things change. The rates change. When we run the numbers with our software, we can sometimes spot an error in other software programs, and we can track it down and find it. And sometimes it's an error in the data, in the download, and other times there's something maybe a little suspicious about how they're adding up all the different fees. Does anyone, how many hands here, how many people think that if their life depended on it, they could add up the SDG&E utility bills to the penny using the published utility rates?
I've tried it, it's super hard.
You've tried it, it's super hard.
Yeah.
And how long did you try to do that?
got 6 years worth of bills, and I had to keep changing everything.
Okay, and then
Constantly changing.
in the back of the room, someone tried back there. What's your experience?
I do it for a living, so I know how to read them, and I have a spreadsheet that I can plug stuff in and it'll tell me like the stuff to do.
Okay, great. So we're going to bring you up to the front to answer our non-bypassable charge questions in a few minutes. And then over here, we had one more person that's...
Be in the same business you are.
Okay. And so you never had a head-scratching moment where things were different, they weren't as expected?
Well, I've had to have long arguments with the SDG&E people.
Aha, okay, you've been on the phone. And what's it like being on the phone with SDG&E when you have a bill question?
In our company, you knew more than the SDG&E people.
Okay, did everybody hear that? We've had people in our company that knew more than the SDG&E people. When you call the number, it might take some time to get an answer. When you're buying energy efficiency products or when you're thinking about making changes in your life, you want accurate information and you want to talk to people that have ethical behavior, that aren't interested in loading up your roof as far as it'll go. You want to talk to people that'll show you the truth. Anyone that tells you up front that you don't necessarily need to get solar for your electric car, there is a discount electric vehicle time of use rate 5. If that person is on commission, there's a strong chance that they are an ethical energy person, that they're willing to walk away from a paycheck in order to give you the information that you need and then let you make the decision. Yeah. All right, so let's compare the electric vehicle driving with gas driving here. So a hybrid, I hope I'm not in the way here, am I blocking your way? A hybrid vehicle, that's supposed to say 40 miles per gallon there, $1,200 per year, 25 miles per gallon, $1,900 per year. A truck at maybe 13 miles per gallon, a late model truck, you know, we're much better than that now. We're 21 miles per gallon on some trucks, but $3,700 per year. So I just made this slide just a few minutes before coming over here, but it looked to me like it's pretty convincing information that, you know, gas is expensive. We all knew that. We're at $4 per gallon. We were at $3.25, I think, a year or two ago. The flyers from the Electric Vehicle Association that I had in my portfolio on the way over here that I was using to compare this slide, it said $3.25. Can anybody get $3.25 even at Costco with a, no? Maybe with a fleet purchase if you had a tanker truck that could follow you around? So that's a little unlikely. It's expensive with gas and expensive with utility power during certain times of day. And many times customers have an electric vehicle and nobody told them that these rates exist. And their bill's huge. A lot of people don't care. A lot of people pay by auto pay. They do care, they don't know. There's a lot of heartache and, you know, broken, a lot of tears. Different tears, not the utility rate tears. All right, so on the maintenance side, we had the cost side, the supply side. On the maintenance side, we have this new report from New York City about massive savings in its fleet. It's approximately $1,000 to $2,000 per vehicle per year, I believe is the correct. It's in this Electrek article. This is an early example. We'll see more and more examples as time goes on, and then we can vet those numbers. They also compared with hybrid models. We're all doing really good if we're driving at least a hybrid or at least a car that has a good emissions system that can capture some of the emissions. You know, we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, so some of the electric versus gas economics. EVs may account, and that includes, when I say EV, that's all plug-in vehicles, plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles combined, may account for more than half of global car sales by 2040. So that's just a few years away, and recently in the Morgan Stanley prospectus, I noticed that they said the same thing about a year ago, and Morgan Stanley was saying that there's a tipping point coming soon where it's lower cost to purchase, lower cost to maintain and supply, and at that point everyone's going more electric. It's not just the CAFE standards, those are under threat by political means, right? We had at one point, I think we had 54 miles per gallon CAFE standards by, do you remember the year, John? 2030, I think.
Something like that.
That included all of the fleet, including trucks, that we would have an average of 55 miles per gallon. The Prius drivers in the room know 55 is pretty hard to get. You have to drive very, very economically and conserve your energy, and that's with a low coefficient of drag, a very efficient vehicle. So the fact that a truck might be getting that amount, that's going to be an electric vehicle. Or when those CAFE standards were being formed, there was a lot of talk then about hydrogen vehicles and a lot of talk about hybridization with mechanical hybrids. A lot of those vehicles now have become compliance vehicles to satisfy the laws, to earn credits for the manufacturing companies. When those credits are no longer available, the companies pull those vehicles. They're there just to meet the California emission standards or other state standards. So in this boom, we're going to have, by their estimates, 57% of all passenger car sales will be EVs and 81% of buses. That's good. All right, and I remember just a random fact. In California, a few years ago, Santa Monica was the highest per capita EV adoption. But judging by the number of EVs that I see at events and on the streets, I think San Diego is really moving up in this area. Where is everybody plugging in? How many people are plugging in at charging stations? 2, 3, 4. I've never plugged in at a charging station. I've been plugging in since 2010. Has anyone had to plug in at a charging station for an emergency? Or is this a daily? We had 3 people. Daily?
Well, not daily, but it's free for me.
It's free for you. Is that through work?
No, through Tesla.
Through Tesla. That's fantastic.
You would buy a car and he would say you get free charging for a lifetime.
What model year is your car?
2018.
That's a 2018. So for a brief period, they were offering free charging. Is it for life?
For the life of me.
For you. Okay. All right. In the early days, Tesla vehicles, some of them were available with lifetime charging in Tesla's network. If you're ever interested in it and you could have a used vehicle, if you have a very long commute, don't think about loading up your room and your house, your roof, and all of the ground area to commute daily to Los Angeles. Go get a used Tesla that has the free charging and get the solar just for your needs that are at your home, your daily use. The next homeowner might not have that commute. Keep those things in mind. And one other person.
On a road trip.
What was that?
On a road trip.
Road trip charging. Okay, that's a bit of an emergency if you can't go anywhere on a road trip, right? And was this the same charging network that is here locally?
Oh, the Tesla network.
Tesla network as well. Okay, so there's lots of charging stations, especially Tesla at the malls. We see about 30 or 40 spaces there at the Fashion Valley Mall. And I went to an event when you were there. It's Dennis, right? You're silhouetted here. I can't quite see you, but I can recognize your voice. Every charging station was used there, and there were other charging stations for the EVgo network and others, and we saw many cars plugging in that day. So it wasn't an emergency when you were driving, was it? You just used the app on the center panel to find your nearest station, and you charged up. And how long did that take to charge?
80% usually takes about 30 minutes.
Okay, and what range is 80% for your Tesla?
About 180 miles.
180 miles in about 30 minutes. That's just enough time to go to a restaurant and not have enough time to eat slowly. So it didn't take too long, right? And how about for your charging?
335 miles, 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
335.
335 miles in 40 minutes, and that's on the supercharger, the 480 volt, is that what that is?
Yeah, and he has about 13,000 of those within the country.
I didn't hear that last part. Can you repeat?
Within the United States, he has about 13,000 superchargers.
Very good. All right. Excellent. Tesla's made great use of those credits we were talking about that other manufacturers, the gross polluting vehicles, that they love to sell us. They love to cancel the electric vehicles and then bring out the SUVs and the things people want. You can have what you want, but you might need to make an adjustment in how you think about your future. You don't have to adjust your lifestyle. So let's get to some of these. I'm going to skip the case study right now, and let's take a look. It went on my computer, but not up there. There we go. This is a little bit of a laugh here. I don't believe wholeheartedly that Toyota is interested in bringing us electric vehicles because at every opportunity they've taught us that that's not the case. But to get some headlines last week, after 2 other solar-powered electric vehicles debuted, Toyota brought us this, and looks like the solar panels are, you could just maybe pop them right off. It looks like snaps, I don't know. But apparently, with high-efficiency solar panels, you could get 27 miles of driving per day. I'm a Toyota driver for many, many years, 19 years. And we had a Toyota person here a moment ago that was plugging in and had, who was it? It was, with a Prius Prime, you had 100 miles, 180 miles per gallon. Who was that in the parking lot I saw? Is that person in here right now?
We did have a Prius Prime, but I think they've left.
Okay.
Yeah.
With a very small battery, having 180 miles per gallon is really a feat. But I have a 10 kilowatt hour battery. One time I was able to get 1,000 miles out of a tank. And that's by a lot of local driving and city driving and things like that. And then 1 fill up on the battery per night. That's what I was doing. Gave me that range. If I plug in, fill the battery, and drive to San Jose, I could get there in 1 tank as well, but it would be bone dry and it'd be pretty risky. This is an interesting development. Wouldn't you like to see solar power in the paint of the car? As long as you're parking on the top of the garage at the airport or at your workplace, if you're not right under a tree or next to the building, you could have some recharging along the way. They now have it so you can charge, some of these are coming soon vehicles, but a few of these have charging while you're driving. So the sun's shining, you're on the open road, you're driving and charging, extending that range. Okay, so this is available in Europe, and we put it in the US price here. You can't get this one here yet, but Sono's Scion is a solar-powered vehicle. Of course, these have plugs and they can plug in, but this one has a pretty decent EV range. It has some interesting features. Inside the dashboard, there's moss inside the dashboard and a clear plexiglass so that you can see it in there. And it acts as the air filtration system while you drive around. And there's plenty of places I wish I had that, because that's a great idea, having clean air, as long as the moss doesn't grow mold, I suppose. So these are on sale in Europe, on sale taking reservations. It's still a coming soon vehicle. Sometimes coming soon doesn't get here at all. This one is now taking orders. It's only $167,000. Only, but it has a very large range, a 450-mile EV range, and it's kind of a stretched out, sleek design, and so it can capture more power. Really, you want the solar array, you want grid-tied utility scale solar, or you want your home to have the solar. You don't need to have every inch of the car covered with some, but it's nice to have some on the car. If you have a 450-mile range, I really don't see the need for having the solar anymore. You have so much battery. That's 99.9% of your driving, right? So there is SolPad. They have a big Tesla-style product launch 3 years ago. And I made an investment to buy 1 module so that I could bring it here tonight, and it's still not here. So where's my money? It was more than $1,000 for the deposit. These modules plug in together. So on the back here, you can't quite see it, but those look like 3-prong regular 120-volt outlets on the back. They are. You take this to the campground, you pull out the kickstand, it starts charging the battery that's on the back of the module, you plug your appliances into it, you have power at the campsite, and you can plug from one module to another, and then you can plug an electric car. As long as you have 2 modules together, you could level 1 slow charge your car at a campsite and boost the battery. Or you can string these together, and I forget how many. Again, it's coming soon, so it really doesn't matter. I want my money back.
But you don't have any specs on them?
You can go to solpad.com. They've taken the solar modules and they've minimized it. It's no longer the prominent feature on the homepage, but if you dig, you can probably find the specs. And they have the home automation systems front and center right now. So they have some very forward-looking products and big industry-style presentations and walk across the stage and that kind of thing. But it's yet to be seen. Their thing with the solar modules, what I was so interested in, is that you can plug the solar module into the wall outlet in your home. You don't have to have the solar inverter. You don't have to have the permit application. You don't have to have the solar salespeople come. You just get a module and plug it in. I think that's a fantastic idea, but they would have to solve the islanding problem. If there's a blackout and linesmen are working on your house or down the street, if there's solar power that's plugged in, they would have to be safe. So that might be one of the holdups. It's a few companies have gone that same route and said they were bringing solar modules that you could plug right in to the mains and never made it. Okay, so there's a few electrics that are in the coming soon category. So this year, taking orders on the Mini Electric, 146-mile range, $35,000. This is a really sleek-looking Volkswagen ID. Volkswagen is in a lot of hot water right now. Do people know about Dieselgate? Why would Volkswagen try to kill their American customers with pollution? They have told us that these vehicles are clean and the vehicles know how to defeat the emissions testing. It only works in the lab. It's clean in the lab. Everywhere else, pouring out pollution. Not just Volkswagen, Daimler Chrysler, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and I think there's one other, and Audi. All of them. And there could be more. There could be American manufacturers as well. But what really hurts, I think, is that 40,000 people, I remember seeing a stat one year, 40,000 people die from asthma, lung-related complications every year. Well, that's predominantly from automotive pollution. And if they're exporting those vehicles here with the intent to pollute in our air, then they're exporting that death here. So the penalty, they got off light, the penalty was a few $1 billion in electric vehicle charging station purchases. San Diego is installing those charging stations and they're going in all over the country as well. So we can thank VW, they've made a change, they're repentant, and they're bringing us a whole lineup of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids now.
DMV is also placing DMV holds on those vehicles, so if you come into the smog bay and have your car tested, it will place the DMV registration hold until that recall has been performed.
That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of angry car holders not being able to drive. Okay, so here we have the Honda. All right, 124-mile range, decent horsepower. These are pretty small. There's a lot of choices available, not just small vehicles. There's trucks. So 400-mile electric vehicle range, Rivian R1 made an announcement, and they're going to be in a head-to-head battle with Tesla for trucks. Tesla's made an announcement for trucks. I don't have it here in this presentation. We didn't get it in the show. Do you know, and does any Tesla fan know the range on the Tesla truck, the promised range? 400 miles. So there you go. So their competitors, equal value on the range. This is 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I don't know why you would need to do that with a truck with a high center of gravity and gridlock, but maybe. And it has 8,000 pounds towing capacity.
Full off-road truck.
Okay, so here's Porsche. $75,000. That looks like a bargain for that car. That looks really amazing. Yeah, 300-mile range. Do we need that much horsepower? Who needs that much horsepower in San Diego? I hear people saying that. Are you racing Paul?
Yes.
Paul races his Birdmobile.
You need that for the racetrack.
You do. Insane mode. Press the button. That's great. Electric vehicles are fast. Many years ago, I recall seeing a headline that the top 5 fastest vehicles in the world were EVs at some point, years ago. Well, there's a lot of muscle cars that have a lot of horsepower, but they have to rev up to get that torque. EVs, Paul, how fast are you off the line? Does your head hit the headrest?
Yeah, you leave everybody about 100 yards behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a few seconds.
I think someone once said their headrest came off. They knocked the headrest off. So Polestar, I'm not familiar with this one.
Volvo.
That's a Volvo, okay. So Volvo's made an announcement. I believe Volvo also said that made a commitment to going all electric. They have available now I believe it's the C90. We'll get to those in a moment, which is a 8-seater. So for people with large families, there are the Chrysler Town and Country or Chrysler Pacifica minivan and the Honda Odyssey. I think that one might have been canceled. Those were both 7-seaters. And then there's Volvo that claims 8-seater. And then there's a few Teslas. Model X, how many seats are we maxed out? 7? 7? Yeah. 7. And yours is the X?
No, S.
Yours is, who has the Model X that was outside? Maybe that person left already. Okay, Mercedes-Benz, 280 miles range. Great, EQC, $80,000. Today, you can get a V-Trucks. Former GM Bob Lutz, probably a familiar name. He was responsible for some different types of vehicles that came off the assembly line years ago. And now he's converting vehicles with his own company, Via Motors, to become electric. Vans and trucks. This is a work truck. It'll have power outlets inside. It'll have a 40-mile all-electric vehicle range. If that's within the construction commute, the daily commute, that's a lot of money saved on the gas savings. And then to have job site power. So now we have the long range. Of anyone thinking about electric vehicles, how many, be honest, how many have anxiety about running out of electricity? Okay, so that was 10. How many, 11, 10, how many people have had anxiety about running out of gas? Wow, that's more. We have more people. How many people have actually run out of gas? Are you telling me you didn't have anxiety? That's more hands. We have some people that are not quite telling the truth. Every time you run out of gas, if you're on a freeway, that is a matter of life and death. Well, people are worried about electric vehicles running out of power. What about plug-in hybrids? Has anyone ever run out of gas and electricity in a plug-in hybrid? 4 times. 4 times. So when you get 1,000 miles out of a gas tank, when you plug in daily, your emergency light is blinking, possibly for a month or maybe 2 months. That's what happens, right? It starts blinking. In my Prius, I have the light comes on early. I have about 6 gallons left. A month later, I'm on the freeway in a rush, going to Vegas, not paying attention, on the phone, doing some business. I was applying for this application for a grant. I wasn't the driver. I had someone else driving the car. They weren't aware, they weren't watching. This thing's been blinking forever. We ran out of gas in the desert. We drove on battery power as far as we could without breaking the car. I've done it the other 3 times. I was able to make it to the nearest gas station on the reserve battery power in the plug-in car. So you do have a choice with a plug-in electric vehicle. There's a button usually on the dash or in the software. You can reserve some battery power, or you can go down a hill and get some battery power back. When it comes time and you realize that you're out of range, whether it's gas vehicle or electric vehicle, look for a place downhill. You can go a long way. Do you know the stretch of road between Santa Barbara and what's on the south side of that? Not Ojai, I guess, is where there's about a 20-mile range there where there are no gas stations. And as soon as I got past the last gas station, I was out of gas. But thankfully, I had accidentally turned off my plug-in hybrid conversion, and I had enough battery. Made it all the way and got to the gas station and filled up. And then another time I ran out and I just went and plugged in at the donut shop. Sat around, had some donuts. So lots of refueling station options when you have a plug-in hybrid. Don't buy the range anxiety. There's 2 fuels, but if there's a true emergency, gas stations aren't pumping fuel. The real range anxiety in a true emergency is the gas line and people fighting over that, whereas there's electric outlets and solar power, and a lot of homes have solar and batteries. A lot of homes have solar that works without batteries when the utility is offline. That's possible as well with one specific inverter. So anyways, here we have 6 vehicles with a long range, 232 to 240 miles, and only one of those vehicles is more than 40,000. And by the time we get done with incentives, it's about probably 2/3 of that cost. And then we have some more expensive luxury vehicles, 204 miles. Can everybody see those numbers okay? We tried to make them as big as possible here. So after this event, we'll post these charts online, or you can go to InsideEVs.com, and you can find these electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids listed in the electric vehicle scorecard. That's where you see the real vehicles, not the coming soons. And it's sorted by how they're selling. So you'll see them ranked, and then you can figure out, oh, okay, this one's only, maybe 100 vehicle sales, and it's been out for several months. That's probably fleet vehicles. The salespeople in the showroom are going to steer you away from that. They're not going to. These things aren't readily available. The salespeople want you to take the gas-powered SUV. The margin's higher. That's where you're headed usually, right? Is it still true? Do we still think that that's true? Has anyone been steered away from getting an electric vehicle? No? I have. I wrote out a check for a car. I bought the car online, went to the dealer to pick it up. About 3 or 4 hours later, ready to pull my hair out, almost in tears, can't get the car. The one I bought, the one I reserved, the one they said was there. They tried to steer me into something else. You can get to something else. They weren't interested in selling the electric car. Okay, so I'm just going to flash through these really quick to move on. We have, I think on the flyer we said 44 different models. This list is very long because some of those models have multiple versions. And so if there's a different generation, there's probably a different battery pack, a different range. Batteries are getting better and better with the evolution. And manufacturers, we think, a lot of people say this way, that maybe the first generation is a first try, and maybe I wouldn't want to buy that one. Well, guess what? These have made a lot of vehicles depreciate in price. People are leasing vehicles at a much higher rate than they're purchasing the electric vehicles because someone told them not to trust the car. Well, even for a luxury brand gas car, over the first 3 years, it might depreciate around 50%. And the same is true with electric vehicles. Having captured tax incentives and rebates baked into the price, it's possible you can get a below half-price car after 3 years. There's a glut in the market if you're shopping for vehicles, if you're considering a used vehicle, and maybe you think that's worth giving a try. There's a lot of options available there too. We love the new vehicles. It's great to be the first owner, but there's a lot of choices. For businesses that lease, there's 100% first-year write-off. Congress, with bipartisan support, friends across the aisle, signed into law tax credits for mainly wealthy people that can afford electric vehicles and solar power and batteries. Well, on the vehicle side, 100% write-off up to $11,500 for any corporation that's established 2014 or before. If the vehicle's more than 6,000 pounds, so that could be a Model X, or maybe that Rivian truck, 100% write-off up to $26,000 for that vehicle. That's also adding to this leasing phenomenon. So used vehicles can be a bargain. On the battery side, there could be some concerns. Was this car parked below sea level when the hurricane hit in Houston? I don't think that's a concern. If salt water gets into a battery, it is done. And in fact, salt water would make a connection between the terminals of the batteries and there would be a fire. We're not worried about flood risk. We're worried about maybe driver behavior being hard on the battery in very hot or very cold conditions can cause the battery to age. Or if the battery management system is insufficient, then the battery is only as good as the battery management system. Look online and look at reviews, and then look into the warranty on any used car. You can tell a lot about the electric vehicle battery by the driving range. Try to get a test drive where you can test the range. Well, you can't really do that in one sitting. testing a vehicle at 70 degrees with the air conditioner off in San Diego, maybe you'll get 5 miles driven per kilowatt hour stored, or maybe even 6. You turn on the air conditioner and drive fast, you might get 3 miles per kilowatt hour stored in the battery. So if you're going up and down hills, going up a hill, on Oahu I rented electric Nissan Leaf from Hertz, and my wife's here in the audience, and we were petrified going over the Poly Highway. We didn't think we were going to make it over the top. Well, we did. We'd been driving around all day in the Honolulu area, and made some trips, and then came over this mountain, and as soon as we went down the other side, we got all that energy back. So it's kind of difficult to do a test drive to just test the battery. So there has to be other ways. Does anyone's electric car give you any information on the health of the battery? No. For that, you need special software you plug in through the CAN controller. Torque is an app that I use to connect to my Prius. I plug into right up below the steering wheel, and then my cell phone gets the data, and I can see the battery temperature. Temperature is your indication of battery failure. There are software programs and laptop and phone apps and things that you can use if you wanted to check out a used car, or you just take it in and get an inspection, the old-fashioned way. Take it in, get it inspected, add an extended warranty if you're concerned. You have rebates and incentives and depreciation that might amount to 70 or 80% of the car's cost after only 3 years. You can afford to have the extended warranty added on. That's what I'm thinking. All right, so our formatting didn't quite work out here, but the Nissan Leaf used this week. We did some shopping for you to see what was going on in the used vehicles too. And with 70,000 miles for $5,400, there are incentives on this to bring it down further, but this is the before incentives price, $5,400. All right, a Fiat 500e, $7,000 used, 27,000 miles. The i-MiEV, this is the rare breed. This is the pink dolphin of the Amazon. You don't see very many of these out there, but they are out there. And so 2012, Toyota Prius here, under $10,000, plug-in Prius. That person was here earlier, said they could get 180 miles per gallon for their commute. Here's a Spark EV. So we had a couple here that were smaller and 4-seaters and 1 5-seater. And then now we're getting into some larger vehicles at $12,000. 2015 Ford Focus Electric, one of my customers just purchased one of those. $12,000 for that. The C-Max Energy, $12,000. These are $35,000 to $40,000 new cars for sale, 3.5, 4 years old, for $12,000. That's great. If you already have an EV for your primary and you're thinking about a second, if you're dragging around a gas guzzler, now's your opportunity to trade that in. There's incentives to trade it in if you have a smog gas guzzler. Go ahead.
The prices you're quoting, are they even, or do you find these are like Auto Trader?
I found these online. So there's 2 sources for this section, Carvana and Shift online. So these prices, I was in the Bay Area last weekend. These were the Bay Area prices, and I almost bought this car. This is incredible. I love this car. It looks like it's kind of like a Nike sneaker, isn't it? It looks like it's lighter than air. It can float. And it's amazing. For less than $13,000, the battery pack in my converted vehicle cost $13,000 years ago for that full conversion. Here's the whole car, plus it has the range extender gas engine. I think that's fantastic. Chevy Volt. My dad has a Chevy Volt. He's at 300 miles per gallon lifetime average. When you get home, go to voltstats.net. If you want to see the leaderboard for all the Chevy Volts, some people are on their first tank of gas with a plug-in hybrid. They had no range anxiety. They don't need gas. They were within that 70 mile or 60 or however many it was when it was new, the range. They were within that range. So my dad, he plugs in at home. He plugs in at work. He has a big solar array. He's driving back and forth. He won't come to San Diego with his beautiful 2014 Volt. He drives here from San Jose in a 15-year-old Toyota Celica. doesn't want to mess up his mileage. Look at that, it says 300 miles per gallon. It's really uncomfortable in his old Celica, let me tell you.
Yeah, clean out that gas once in a while.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So here's the Volkswagen e-Golf at $13,600. Now we're in Mercedes-Benz. A lot of people, this one might be a new one for you. I don't see these around very much. This is 87-mile range. Now we're up to $21,000 for the Chevy Bolt used. This is one of those long-range cars at 240-mile range for $20,000. That's a bargain. The Hyundai Ioniq, $21,000, 29-mile range. So this is your plug-in hybrid with the gas engine, 139 horsepower. There's your Prius Prime, $22,000. It's a 25-mile range stated. For my wife's BMW Countryman, what is it, Ann? It's 18 miles range stated. Have you ever surpassed that? And usually when I get in and the way I drive, it starts out after about a mile, after 1 mile it drops to 15. And I tested it, I had it to the floor. It has a limiter, you're not going to peel out in that car, but it's very fast. It's something like 240 horsepower combined with the gas engine. I don't use the gas engine. I turn the gas engine off, put the pedal down, rocket onto the freeway. Well, rocket, you know, that's a term compared to my Prius. It's a rocket, but it's pretty fast. It's not like the Teslas that are here, but when I drive that fast, I see the range fall very quickly. So that 3-mile trip each way to the pool and back, I use up most of the, I would say probably 2/3 of the battery for the 6 or 7-mile trip, driving like, you know, as fast as I can. I'm not running people off the road at that speed, but 80 miles an hour or 75 miles an hour, you're pushing wind. Even an efficient vehicle becomes very inefficient at higher speeds. It's the same with fluid. If you try to go quickly through fluids, just same with air. So I think we went backward a slide, or maybe we saw this before. There's the E3 Sport. So we've got another 5-seater, a lot of commercials about the e-tron, and you can get in at $23,000 instead of the price tag brand new. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from new. I'm just saying there's a lot of choice available. So here's the Clarity plug-in hybrid, $25,000. Now we're up to the Cadillac at $32,000, the ELR. Very nice looking, 35-mile range plug-in hybrid. And then we're into the Teslas at $32,000. There's another website called Swap a Lease. If you want to try a car for a few months, you could try Swap a Lease. People who are going on long vacations or a military deployment, they might put their lease up for 5 months, 8 months, 12 months. You take over the lease, make sure you get it inspected. You don't want to be on the hook for anything that any damage that they had to the vehicle. But you could try out an electric vehicle that way. There's also a few rental sites for vehicles, and I don't recall the names. One of them starts with an A. Does anybody know the rental site for the luxury EVs? Turo, that's it. So if you want to rent an EV for a weekend, my first suggestion is becoming a member of the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego and come to our meetings, because at those meetings, we draw a raffle. We ask who doesn't have an electric car, you can get into that raffle, and we raffle off a night with a Tesla. It sounds very romantic. Yeah, and there's probably other vehicles that they raffle too, but. So here's that XC, this is the 8-seater hybrid. So that's a plug-in hybrid, 14-mile range. My wife's commute is about 15 miles, right? So about 90% of your annual driving at that workplace is going to be fully electric, solar powered. Very good. But before that, your commute was longer and you were using more of the gas engine and you were getting blended about, what, 60 miles per gallon? From infinity to 60 miles per gallon was just a few miles difference in work. So another way to look at this is if you have an opportunity to choose a job near where you live or to choose a home near where you work, you might be able to avoid a lot of solar batteries and electric vehicle cost. Behavioral changes. So here's the Model 3. That's a brand new car, $42,000. I don't know if that's a discount. I guess it could be. Some of the early Tesla Model 3s were loaded with features and expensive and longer range and that sort of thing. Porsche Cayenne, we see those a lot as a hybrid. Here's your plug-in hybrid version, 14-mile range. We're almost through the new, used vehicles here. So there's a Model X for $62,000 with 25,000 miles only. All right, so let's take a look at an example so you can see how you can afford a new electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid. In this case study, we have a residential vehicle purchase by a teacher who works at UCSD. In this example, they are not qualified for the low-income discounts and incentives. And they're trading in a late model internal combustion engine vehicle for a 12,500 mile commute. They're currently getting about 25 miles per gallon. So in this example with a new BMW 2019 i3 with range extender that costs $48,000 new, we find that there is almost $29,000 incentives. So the after incentive cost is under $20,000. That's amazing. And you can check with your employer. Large corporations might have a fleet vehicle purchase discount. Otherwise, there's grants and rebates and incentives available for you for new vehicles, and that accounts for about $14,000 in incentives. And for some people, if they are qualified for the low-income discount status, then there's additional rebates and incentives for $5,500 in the same scenario. $5,000 for the CVAP grant and a bonus $500 in the CAP California grant. That brings the total cost below $14,000. And the only change that we're making here is a used electric vehicle example. This is the BMW i3 with range extender, 2014 model. It's $12,950 used. And then after rebates and incentives and grants, of a total of about $3,000, that brings the cost down to $10,000 for this used vehicle. Let's take a look at the entire home energy use, the electricity, the natural gas, and the gasoline vehicle fuel. On the left side here, we have the cost, annual cost, and on the right side, we have the categories of energy use: electronics, heating and cooling, home and office and vehicle, kitchen, laundry, and green is energy. That's a special category that has to do with production. And you can see in the chart it's going negative, below zero in cost. So that's for solar power and for battery use to offset the costs. And then at the bottom of this chart, you see that there's three different phases. So let's start at the first phase. For this case study, the homeowner is using power that accounts for $6,048 of energy cost annually. And then by guiding them and educating them about easy, common sense behavioral changes, they can cut their energy costs down by about $550. And those are things that you can find at sdgne.com or at our website or on other online sources to find out how you can save money on your HVAC lighting by adjusting the thermostat, your lighting with control systems, or just turning off the lights when you leave the room. For your vehicle, parking in the shade, putting up, filling your tires with air, getting a tune-up, those kinds of things, obvious things, that accounts for about $550 of savings. And then in the phase 2 energy efficiency, that's when we offer to make changes in the products that they have installed in their home. And so that would be like LED lighting. Every dollar spent on LED lighting saves about $5 to $7 in avoided solar cost. But even without solar, the LED lighting instead of incandescent lighting, it's about a 10-to-1 savings. Same light, but costs about 90% less in your energy use to do it that way. So in addition to that area, we have control systems and timers and things that turn off the power when you're not around, or smart appliances where you can, if you leave the house and you left an appliance on, you can turn it off remotely or have it set up on a schedule where that appliance isn't drawing power during the peak time of day. So that cuts the annual cost down to $4,600. So there's almost $1,000 of savings there in phase 2.
Then when we get to phase 3, this is where you have the option to have an electric vehicle or solar, that's PV in this chart, or advanced energy storage, so you see AES in the chart. Those are the 3 main options, and then we have 7 ways to combine those products together individually or combined. And so you can see by looking at this chart that if all you can afford is just to change your internal combustion gas engine vehicle and get an electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, well, that gives you a discount utility rate, a fantastic rate, and your total energy cost for the year drops almost $2,000 to $2,701. If an electric vehicle isn't right for you, if you're looking for a solar array, in this case it's a half-size array for this customer. It's only producing half the power they need, but it comes with a discount utility rate that knocks the annual cost down to $3,050. And if a person could afford to get solar and an electric vehicle together, then that combined total drops down to $1,500 for the annual cost. So if maybe they don't own the roof, or they can't have solar, or there's heavy shading there, or maybe they live in an apartment building and they can't plug a car in, whatever the case is, if all they can have is advanced energy storage, it will help a little bit to have a battery. It'll knock a few $100s off their electric bill, about $300 per year. Batteries are still pretty costly, so that's not going to work for most people. But if they are able to afford advanced energy storage, either with the electric vehicle rate or with the solar rate, those last 3 columns, you can see that the battery has a big impact. On the electric vehicle rate, a battery can save about $750 per year in addition to the electric vehicle savings. On the solar rate, it's a little less than that. It's about $400 per year savings in addition to the savings you would have had just getting solar. If you combine electric vehicle, solar, and battery together, then you can charge that battery 2 times per day. Once at night at the super off-peak rate, and then consume that power at the off-peak rate in the morning, then charge that battery again from the sun during the day, and then consume that power during the peak rate to offset your peak rate use. The total combined, if you can afford to have all 3 of those products, then the electric bill is $785 at the end of the year. So that's the biggest savings possible. So in the same case study here, let's look at the CO2 savings. CO2 is a greenhouse gas emission. There's other types of greenhouse gases, but let's focus on CO2. So on the left column there, pounds of CO2 annually in thousands of pounds. And let's take a look at phase 1, those same changes we talked about. Starting our baseline, we're at 18,356 pounds of CO2 per year. And then by changing the behavior, how we use appliances and our vehicle, then we're down to 16,000, just under 17,000 pounds of CO2 per year. And then in the energy efficiency phase 2, we've changed a few products. We replaced a refrigerator, and we're using some smarter appliances or some apps, and that has a big effect on CO2 as well. Now we're at 15,604 pounds of CO2 per year. Then when it comes time to get the energy upgrades for an electric vehicle, a big drop here, and that's because the embodied energy in a gasoline vehicle is inherently polluting. We're burning fossil fuels, we're only trapping some of the unburned gases, and we're emitting emissions. So by switching to an electric vehicle and charging from the utility grid already has some solar power and some wind power. So the utility grid is getting cleaner all the time. It may be at 25 or 30% renewable energy now, today, but within a few years it could be at 50%, and then in a 15 or 20 years down the road, it might be approaching 100% renewable energy. So by driving electric and plugging into the utility grid, it saves a lot. You're down to 8,798 pounds of CO2 per year. If we don't change the vehicle to electric and we get a solar array, it saves some on our CO2 production, and that's the green portion under the zero line, under the baseline there. We see there's 2,414 negative CO2. So that's a savings, and it's applied, and it reduces our total and brings us down to $13,190. The same thing happens then on the electric vehicle with solar. We get the CO2 savings from the vehicle going electric and plugging into the utility grid at the super off-peak rate at night, and we add in the CO2 savings from the solar power. Now we're down to 6,384 pounds of CO2 per year. If we only get a battery, then there's not much change because the battery is inefficient in its round trip. It might be saving a few $100s in electric cost, but it's actually adding to our CO2 usage because it's inefficient 5% each way in and out of that battery. So it's using more power, producing more CO2. And then the next column, if we get the battery and the electric vehicle together, of course, that is a big savings in CO2. Now we're down to 8933. And if we're getting a battery and solar, that's great. 13,325 pounds of CO2, a little bit more than with the solar only. But if we get all three together, we're down at 6,519. So the best option here is electric vehicle and solar together on the CO2 savings. So the best option here, to put this in perspective, from where we started with 18,356 pounds of CO2 per year, and then dropping down with solar and electric together to 6,384 pounds of CO2 per year. That's roughly 12,000 pounds of CO2 saved per year. That's equivalent to planting 90 trees on 6.5 acres of land. And so to give you an idea, that's roughly 5 football fields of land covered with trees planted every year. Now I'd like to invite you to come to our website at makello.com, Makello.com, where you can register for a free energy analysis, and you can find out how much CO2 and money you can save per year with solar power, electric vehicles, and or batteries for your home or business.